Back here on the Bobcast, your Frostburg State Athletic Update, weekly update podcast style show here with Coach Kerry Saunders. Coach, you played Grove City here last week. You fall in the first round of the ECACs. Just kind of want to get your overall thoughts on that game in particular.
Yeah, first of all, first time making ECACs, I think in like a decade, which is also, a great feat for us to cap off an even better season. Um, and yeah, going into that game, we find out on Monday that we play Wednesday. It's a quick
Yeah.
turnaround for a team that you've never seen before. But our girls did a good job getting prepared for that game. And, they were ready, it seemed like, but, we fell short in that game. We hit a spell where we did not play very good basketball, and they played very well, and they shot the ball very well. But once again, we came storming back and made it a ball game. And then, two just costly turnovers, right there at the end of the game just kind of took the wind right back out of our sails a little bit. But Grove City is a really good team. They had a strong presence, especially on the glass, and that's something that we had been
Yeah.
struggling, with ever since Sydney went out and Anna went out, and we had so many issues with our bigs this year that rebounding was kind of our Achilles heel, and it bit us at the wrong time. So yeah, that was I'm very proud of getting to the ECACs, of making that accomplishment. I think it's something that hopefully the girls will look back on and feel accomplished, especially because last year in the CAC, going out with kind of a bang is what we've talked about, and I feel like that's exactly what we accomplished. So I'm proud of the girls and proud of our fight this year.
You alluded to this in the matchup against Grove City, but what did you like about the way your team responded in that second half? Kind of made a run, like you said.
Yeah, I got into him a little bit at halftime and got into him a little bit in the third quarter
Yep.
because, I called a timeout and I was like, we have done nothing what we talked about in halftime. Not a
Mm-hmm.
single thing have we adjusted to. So I was proud that we did give that fight, at the end of the game. I ended up putting, I think, Drew and Grace in and kind of going a little bit bigger because I knew that those two they have fight. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I needed at that point. I needed, rebounds and fight. And so that kind of sparked our run. And so, yeah, I'm proud of the fact that we did come back and we did put up a fight. I always look back and say, like, if we could just play that way more consistently, where we would be. But overall, extremely proud, extremely proud.
Moving towards more of a big picture conversation here, how did you like the progression of this team this season? I asked you this after the game immediately, but
hmm
what did you like about the overall team progression as they went forward this season?
Yeah, I think we started off so strong in non-conference play, and it was a different dynamic this year. We didn't start conference until after Christmas, which was really strange. For the first time since I've been here, we've always had at least four conference games before Christmas to kind of get your feet wet a little. So we started off, that run. I think we lost two games non-conference, which is fantastic. We were heading into conference play in a really good position, and you know we opened up conference play with a really big win here at home, and it kind of just propelled us a little. But I can't, talk about the CAC enough about how competitive it is, and you have to show
Mm-hmm.
up every night. But the progression of our girls, you know, I always talk about the ups and downs of a long season, and there definitely were some of that. But in the beginning of the season in non-conference play, I continued to preach like next man up. Like every
Mm-hmm.
time we come into the locker room, it's great to be talking about someone different. Not the same name every time because that's what we needed in conference play. Um, and by the time we hit conference play, some of our freshmen were giving us more valuable minutes. Anai Allen and Anna Reese and all those kids that were kind of um, not doing as much productively and not in non-conference kind of hit the ground running, so to speak, in conference. And then another one is Drew Dunathan, who completely hit the ground running
Yep.
second half of the CAC. So I talk about those young kids, how you kind of have to turn the page and you have to mature within the program pretty quickly. So I'm proud of those young kids who put up that fight. And again, the progression of our returners. Amanda Emery, once Sydney went out, stepped up huge. She was having a great year, but she even stepped up even bigger. Megan Kelly had a great senior year. I thought she was consistent all year long. Diggs was consistent all year long and achieved some fantastic milestones. And Jasmine, I think, finished out her senior year exactly the way that we wanted for her, with contributing in the way that she knows how to contribute. So, yeah, the whole season was a great progression. Obviously, you look back and drop a few games here or there that you could have won, but for the most part, I'm extremely proud of this group.
So maybe putting you on the spot here, Coach, but what are some of your fondest memories from this season?
Oh man. First one that immediately pops to mind was Megan Kelly's 3-pointer against Chatham on the road to win.
Early in the season, yeah.
That was like it was early in the season, but oh my gosh, that was a fun game. And then the other non-conference win is that road game at Catholic. We had everything against us that game. Bus was late.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the games that you remember. We came out and we absolutely dominated that game. And that was kind of, I remember people after the game was like, that's how you know you have a special group, is when they can face that type of adversity and come out and play. Obviously beating, some of the big CAC names like York and Mary Wash, the big win against Southern Virginia. But also the way that we competed against Christopher Newport. They're heading to the Sweet 16, and if you look at the CAC, who we didn't beat them, but we gave them really two really good games.
Yep.
So I think I always say if we got them again, if we got out of the first round of the tournament, I think we wanted some revenge a little down there. But yeah, there's so many good memories. It's hard to pinpoint one, but the first one that came to mind was definitely Megan Kelly's 3 for the win.
Coach, you mentioned this a little bit with Anaya Allen, Drew Donathan,
Mm-hmm.
and Anna Reese. Who really stood out to you this season in terms of their development?
Drew.
Drew.
Drew. She went from being a name in the conversation really early on in the season, dropping off completely, not seeing any game time, and then becoming a starter to round out the second half of the season.
Making key rebounds
Yeah,
in big games.
and that was the big thing that she just did is I knew that she wasn't going to produce points for us. That's something that we're going to have to grow her into. But that girl has more heart and more fire than anyone. I mean, it is crazy. Even in practice, the girls are like, I have to box out Drew.
Yeah.
She's a tough kid. I've even gotten into practice, and she's strong. So her development, but it's just her want to win and her want to play. That's pretty much what it is. But I'm really proud of all of our freshmen in the way that they've developed. Obviously, Anna got hurt, so we didn't finish her freshman year the way that we wanted to. And Anai, I think we opened Anai's eyes to how good she can be if she wants to put in the work, because that kid is so athletic. But all of them, I'm really proud of their development, and Grace as well, coming off of that freshman year, season-ending injury, to her coming back and playing valuable minutes down the stretch for us is a huge progress and a progression into next year. So,
what do you want to see from your team this off season from development?
I want to see them in the gym.
Yeah.
I want to, walk down the hallway and hear balls bouncing and see my girls in the gym, because that's what this off season is about. I want them to get stronger in the weight room. I want them to want to be in the weight room. And I also want them to spend time together. I know it was a long season and they've spent a lot of time together, but this off season is kind of where you grow those relationships. But I want to see them want to get better, and do it without the coaches being there. So I want them to enjoy it and have fun. And, we've got a lot of injuries that we've got to recover from. Sydney will probably go into surgery this week. We've got Anna recovering, and then we've got just the typical bumps and bruises from a long season. But I want them to be ready to come back and kind of make this next chapter a fun chapter for Frostburg.
Final question for you. What is your focus heading into this offseason as the coach of the program?
Well, right now we are on the road recruiting.
Recruit.
We've gotten, some big-time recruits committed here recently, and we're so excited about them. And we've got a few more hanging on here. So we're trying to wrap that up, but we haven't really had time to wind down yet. But as a coach of the program, I'm really looking to dive into the Mountain East. I'm going to take time watching film of the Mountain East. Obviously learning everything that I need to learn, and then putting together new and exciting traditions, so to speak, as we head into this next phase. So I also want to brush up, and continue to learn from my standpoint. There's things that I know that I can do better as well, as well as my girls. I want them to do better. So just as a coach of this program is just to continue to grow. I always tell the girls that you never stop growing no matter how old you are, and there's always things to do and see and learn. So, finish up this recruiting class, turn the page to the next recruiting class, but then also figure out how we're going to go into the Mountain East and kind of make a wave in the Mountain East, this first year. So lots of work ahead of us, but definitely very proud of the season.
Coach Carrie Saunders, thanks for joining us all season, and thank you for talking with us today.
Thank you.
Back here on the Bobcast, another episode number 24. We're here with head coach Guy Robertson. Coach, a 2-0 weekend this past weekend. What'd you like from what you saw this past weekend?
Well, it was good. We were a little more battle tested this weekend. Felt like the level of competition was a little bit up and heading in the right direction for what we're going to face here in the next couple weeks with the CAC schedule upcoming in 2 weeks. And again, down early and having to come back. And these 7-inning games are tough because they're over before you know it. It seems like. So it was nice, obviously, to come from behind a little bit and putting ourselves in a situation to be behind in the first place. I don't really feel like RIT did a whole lot to help themselves. But to be able to bounce back, Ryan Roll comes up with a huge home run for us there to tie the ball game. But it was nice. We saw an outstanding starting pitcher. A guy that would be a number one on a lot of programs, and I thought we battled really well, and obviously we kept ourselves in the ball game until we got an opening, and then we were able to take advantage. So it was good. They have a good ball club. It was nice to be pushed a little bit more this weekend, and it was always nice to come out on top.
In your opinion, how much growth can be had from being undefeated currently 7-0 on the season, and all those games being on the road, though early? How much growth can be had with being so successful on the road?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said for what occurs when you have to get on the bus and stay in hotels and the camaraderie that's built. Everybody is put into an adverse situation, like it or not, and you got to figure out how to deal with it and overcome it and work through it and try to find ways to win. It's always nice to be undefeated to start the season. I don't know that for me personally it makes a whole lot of difference that it's all occurred on the road because that's all it ever has in the past. And really anybody that's been in the program, that's all they know anyways. So for us to start out going on the road as much as we have and the changes that we've had to deal with, it's really just kind of par for the course. But each season is in and of itself a challenge. You don't know how the new guys are going to handle these things. You don't know how your roster is going to look when you have to go through them. Who's going to be available? Who might be hurt? Who has to step up? Those types of things, and the things that you have to do and shift around, not just the schedule but the personnel. So, yes, it seems kind of par for the course for me and anybody that may have gone through it. But you don't know, and we have a ton of new guys how they're going to handle it. So to go through it, it is nice, and to be able to excel as we have has been nice. So each season, it's obviously its own challenge, and then that group that's on those buses and in those hotels have to be able to step up and face that challenge and then try to overcome those hurdles.
You said you saw some of the best pitching you've seen this season, this past weekend. Did you think that was important with conference play right around the corner?
No question. To have some of the at-bats that we had against a guy that was really a power arm with plus stuff, and then to be able to ultimately come out on top against him, even though it was their first game of the season, his first game of the season, I really thought that it was nice to be pushed a little bit in that regard to see how some of our guys handled that type of situation and the at-bats we were able to put together. And good college baseball is supposed to be 3-2, 4-3. It's not supposed to be 18-4 or something like that. That's not how it's supposed to work. So it's good to be put in those situations where you face a guy that we're going to face typically at least once a weekend, maybe twice. And then they brought a guy out of the pen who was really good, and I thought all the guys that they threw were quality pitchers. So it was good, and then it was good to be able to bounce back in game two and put up a lot of runs and have a little bit more of an offensive outburst. So it was kind of the tale of two games, obviously, but to be able to do what we did in game one, really set us up for game two. But it was nice to see us be able to do it against a quality arm on the mound there.
Another good outing from your starting pitcher, Colby Lee. Has he shown? I know it's only been a couple of starts, but has he shown the potential to be that Friday guy in terms of a weekend series?
Absolutely. I think some of the fortitude that he showed and the courage that he showed this weekend was really nice. We were going to take him out. He didn't want to come out. We let him go and got us through the 6th inning instead of the 5th inning. I think he was really disappointed in himself with the outing that he had last Friday against New Rochelle. I know he felt like he let his teammates down, even though those things happen. I knew where his head was at all week long, and he and I had a good conversation, and really, really nice to bounce back and get the performance that we got out of him. And, I anticipate more of the same moving forward out of him.
Ryan Roll goes 2 for 4 in Game 1. How important is it to have his bat in that 4 hole?
Well, for the first 3 weekends, it's been huge. He has generated a ton of offense. I think he's hit a home run every weekend. He's had a lot of extra base hits driven and a lot of runs. The home run that he hit on Saturday was a huge at bat. Like I said, that was against a guy really doing some good things with the baseball. And he put together a tremendous at bat, and then hit probably the 8th or the 9th pitch that he saw, over the left field fence, and that ultimately tied the game. It was nice to see him put together an at bat like that, because he has had some wasted at bats, where he's, put balls in play that he shouldn't have swung at on the, a first pitch, and he did that a little bit, later on in the second game. So it was nice to see him put together an at bat like that against an arm like we were facing at the time, and that's what he's capable of. The minute that he realizes that there isn't a pitcher that has any type of arsenal that can get him out with, that he's the guy that needs to dictate what goes on in the batter's box, not the guy standing 60 feet 6 inches away, and that he realizes that he can do that every single at bat instead of it being, every other at bat or every third at bat. He could be a monster, but that's all part of the maturation process and growing as a hitter and understanding what the other guy's trying to do to you and what your role is. And, each at bat changes or is dictated on situation. And then, what that pitcher, what he's capable of doing. So he's coming along. We've had a lot of conversations about hitting approach and how you go about it. And he's a guy that it's really been fun because he's an emotional guy. But to see him, he's trying to mature and grow and not just rest on the success that he had in junior college and feel like, hey, I've been able to do this in the past. He's trying to get better and expand his arsenal as well. So I'm excited about, what he can do here the next couple weeks and how much better he can get.
As a team, already 10 home runs this season. Is that something you want to have continue to grow, or would you like to see a little more manufacturing runs offensively?
Well, actually, we actually did a really good job of manufacturing runs both games. Especially the second game, we had a couple ground balls in the infield with a man on third and less than 2 outs that just generated a run. Those are huge momentum swings or momentum kept in your dugout. I think there's a balance there these days with the home run. Excuse me, the home run ball. And, trying to drive the baseball and this launch angle stuff that you hear about all the time, and versus traditional baseball where, you may try to bunt a guy over or hit and run or, hit behind a runner or, elevate a baseball into the outfield for a sacrifice fly or whatever, just hit a simple ground ball to shortstop to score a run. But there's got to be a balance there. The games have been played the same way for 150 years, and, bigger, stronger, faster is obviously taken away from a little bit less of the small ball approach. But that's still got to be there because our athletes at this level and at several levels in college aren't bigger, faster, stronger. They got to be smarter, and we have to prepare them and to execute in each situation. And but we had a conversation after the game. You just never know when one run in the 4th inning is going to be a deciding factor.
Right.
You got to get that run, and you got to play and get every single one that you can because, we were up 10-3, and I knew what was going to go on in that game. And we left a couple on the table. When we stopped at 10, there was a couple runs to be had out there to get to 11 or 12, and it ended up being a 10-7 ball game at the end with runners left on, runners still on base when the game ended. So You got to get every run that you can get, and sometimes that's a ground ball, sometimes that's a squeeze, sometimes that's a sac fly, sometimes that's a big home run. You need to have a balance there. The neat thing about what our lineup has shown is there has been a balance there. I mean, we've gotten some big knocks when we needed it. We've also been able to steal a base or manufacture a run when we've needed it. So each game's going to dictate that, and a lot of times those premium runs in those 3-2 ball games, those are the ones you got to be able to do some things without hitting the long ball, even though they both factored in that doubleheader on Saturday.
Absolutely. On the other side of the ball, no errors in Game 1. How much pride do you take in that stat?
Yeah. We talked in the fall and in the preseason about numbers that we need to put up from a defensive standpoint. I mean, that's been a focus on what we've tried to do. Especially with the guys on the mound not being going to put up the strikeout numbers, even though Colby struck out 11, I think. I'm not going to put up the day in and day out strikeout numbers that maybe we've had in years past. There's going to be more balls put in play. There's got to be more attention to the defensive end of things. Yeah, I'm very happy with it. You know, we only get to go outside and play on the field when we play games.
Yep.
So obviously the adrenaline's flowing and the intensity levels are different. So that can have an effect. I think the guys have handled it really well. I think we've played really solid defense. Even if you bounce forward to the second game where we made 3 errors, 2 of them were on comebackers to the mound by our pitchers. So that really isn't even our infielders who really factor into that. Yes, it hurts our overall fielding percentage, but our infield defense, I think, has been really, really good. You know, and I hope that it'll continue to get better with more reps and more time. You know, we have outplayed our opponents defensively, and I think that says something about our guys' attention to detail and what we've done to prepare them thus far, because we haven't had any time outside, and I know other teams that we played have. So I'm very happy with where we are right now, but we still need to get better.
You alluded to this in Game 2. It was a big inning that separated things. How do you consistently keep that snowball effect in the lineup?
Well, I mean, you hope to have guys that 1 through 9 that can do some things, and you know, you kind of pass the bat down and be able to operate that way. It obviously doesn't work that way, depending on how well the guy on the mound's thrown. But we've had guys that have stepped in. You know, Trey D'Amico had a huge weekend and was a little injured this weekend and didn't play. So you know, we substitute a freshman in there, and he has a pretty good day. Some of the you know, the overall numbers wouldn't necessarily dictate, but some competitive at bats, you see some growth and development out of him. So it's opportunities for other guys. You know, Brett Fogel bounced in there and had you know, some clutch hits for us in the second game. He's a guy that's been in the lineup pretty consistently since day one. You know, so we're getting some contributions from guys, like I said, I think last week when I was talking about the known quantities coming into the season, it was 1 or 2 guys with a bunch of new guys and some guys you're hoping to bring along. And we're starting to get some contributions out of those guys that weren't known factors when we entered the season. And I think it's just a matter of we're trying to develop all our guys the same. When we go, you know, when we do our hitting work for the day, we're not trying to develop 2 or 3 guys or give 2 or 3 guys more reps or opportunities than, you know, guys that maybe only have a handful of at-bats right now or plate appearances. We're trying to develop them all the same because that's not just for now. That's for 2 weeks from now when that guy may have to come in a pinch hit situation or, you know, step in because of an injury. You just never know when your number's going to be called. We got to make sure all of our guys are ready to go if and when they get in a ball game. So I think that's how we've been able to do it is guys have been prepared. We have been able to get them opportunities along the way here too. I think everybody's had at least one at bat in the season, especially with some of these. We played a bunch of 7-inning games, which I don't particularly like, but it's kind of the weather's dictated it. So to get everybody some opportunities and see some live rounds there in games has been good. So I'm hoping we'll be able to do a little bit more of that stuff as we move forward. But we're just going to continue to prepare our guys and make sure that each guy, if their number's called, is ready to seize that opportunity.
It's always an important part of the game, the bullpen. Looking at the bullpen arms early in the season, both Velasquez and Roosevelt have come in late in games. Is it fair to say those are the guys you're kind of looking at for the back end of the bullpen?
Yeah, we pinpointed those guys, you know, really in the fall as guys that we thought have had some experience doing it in the past. You know, I don't have any idea how it's all going to play out here. You know, Franco's been outstanding. It was nice to get Roosevelt. He was, he got in the ball game finally for the first time. Had some nagging lat injuries the first couple weekends. That's why we weren't able to use him early. You haven't seen him yet. Both of their stuff plays in the back end, middle to back end, which is what we like. The makeup and the mentality on the mound, as much as anything, is what we like there. And of course, Livingston now needing a starting pitcher has opened up a hole there, kind of on the back end. So that's been something that we wanted to identify and try to figure out how we can. Who can replace him as he kind of moved into that starting role. The other guy that you haven't seen who I think could do some really good things back there is Chase DeLost. He's been dealing with a hamstring, and he hasn't been able to throw either. So those three guys, I think, should solidify some things. We've definitely seen some good things out of Dan Ryzik. Nathan Klassmeyer last weekend, but I don't necessarily think that they're suited for the back end, more longer relief type outings with those guys. So we have some things that we still need to figure out. These short games haven't been, really beneficial to us. They have been from a wins and loss standpoint, but from a stretch your bullpen out and kind of get guys that maybe 8th, 9th, 10th on the depth chart in the game hasn't really played out as much as we'd like because we haven't played as many games or the games haven't been as long as they were scheduled to be. So we got some things that we need to try to accomplish here over the next 10 days before we play CNU, but we got to find some ways to get some guys opportunities and figure some things out. But we're starting to see the puzzle come together a little bit, yes. And I think those guys, we look to continue to do a really good job on the back end. But I feel good about the roles we're going to be able to plug a lot of guys into at this point. So I'm happy about that.
You mentioned Livingston. What have you seen from him in his handful of starts thus far this season?
To be perfectly honest with you, I'd like to see more.
Got about 4 innings both times.
Yeah, his pitch count's just been really what's dictated some things. Hasn't been as efficient as I would have liked him to be, as I know he would have liked to be. I mean, let's face it, he's a super competitive kid. He's got tremendous makeup, and his demeanor on the mound is exactly what we want. We just got to continue to work on, getting guys out in less pitches.
Yeah.
Too many balls put in play and 2-strike counts that, been hit, barreled up a little bit. But again, it's a work in progress for everybody still. I wouldn't say that his outings have been bad by any means. I just think that he kind of set the bar last year for what we kind of think he can do and is capable of. And he hasn't reached it yet, but 2 starts in, 2 victories. He's given us a chance to win both the games that he started. That's the job of the starting pitcher, is to give us an opportunity to win the ball game. And, there's nobody on our staff that I believe that gives us that opportunity more than Mike Livingston. So I'm excited about, seeing what happens as we move forward with him. He works tremendously hard at this, and he wants to be the guy that's called upon in the big spots. And I think with him and Colby, we have 2 guys that can handle that situation. And, we're going to look to some other guys here to, hopefully kind of come through as well and build on this momentum and try to keep it going as we move into conference play.
Final question for you. This weekend you take on Eastern and Bel Air. What should we expect to see in that matchup?
Well, it's a team that kind of scratched and clawed against us last year. I don't really know a whole lot about their personnel, their returners and things. I haven't looked at it a whole lot yet. I'll start doing that middle of this week. But, I would expect them to be a scrappy ball club. It's going to be early for them too. Anything can happen in these games where, you're playing shorter games, the weather isn't what you want. We'll be playing on turf, so that'll be a factor sometimes as far as, the speed of the ball and all that stuff. It'll be interesting. It'll be another good challenge for us, I think. I think we'll definitely be up for the challenge, but it'll be another good club, I think, to kind of push ourselves against here as, we get closer and closer to that conference opener. I expect it to be very competitive.
Coach Guy Robertson, thanks so much for talking with us, and good luck this week.
Thank you.
Back here on the Bobcast, your number one source for Frostburg State athletics update in the podcast style media, here with Coach Haley Ware. Coach, a split this weekend, a win over Bridgewater, then you fell to Lynchburg. How would you compare the 2 games?
I think that we came out as 2 completely different teams. Our game against Bridgewater was completely different than our Randolph-Macon game, and then our game against Lynchburg. In the first couple minutes, we thought it was going to be like Bridgewater, and it ended up being more like Randolph-Macon. So I think it really is a flip of the coin of every game of what team that we're going to get, and that inconsistency just needs to be fixed a little bit.
Kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation. And In your opinion, what does it take to kind of fix that, to get that consistency going?
That's what I'm currently still trying to work on. I think that we do have a really young team, and our leadership isn't quite where we would like it to be with only having 3 upperclassmen. And so some of those nerves and some of that kind of newness that the program has, I understand. And that's something where those losses, when it is to that or when we just aren't as good as a different team, like I understand those, and I'm very understanding as a coach in terms of that and try not to take it out on them. But when it just comes down to when we saw our team play how they did on Wednesday against Bridgewater and then to just not show up on Saturday, that's where it's unacceptable in my book. And I think that we really do need to kind of work on that consistency. And they met as a team yesterday, and we're going to just watch some film and talk about it today. And we have all week for next game. So I'm really hoping that we can kind of light the fire again underneath them and show them really what potential they do have.
Big second half vaulted you in that Bridgewater game. In your opinion, what attributed to that?
It just, the whole team was on the same page. Like, the energy was palpable. It was from everyone, from anyone on the bench to on the field. It just was crazy. I think Molly Biggers had a huge impact in that game, not only with the 6 goals, but just the draw controls and her confidence and knowing that we were going to get that ball. I think it radiated. And then Abby kind of first half wasn't that good, and then the second half she really stepped up, and I think, again, that goes back. I mean, a goalie makes or breaks that defense and really does kind of help show that that energy is there, and that if she has confidence and the defense can have confidence, and it just moved down the field. It was an awesome experience.
You've already slightly answered this, but how important is it to have a goalkeeper to play with confidence in that back and, like you said, to connect everyone on the defensive side?
I think that besides the draw, it is the most important aspect of a game is a goalie. I think that if they're off, the whole team is off. And that's where we've talked a lot, and we're going to talk a lot today. Giving up 11 and 13 goals in the first half of games, it's just not acceptable. Like, we dig ourselves too big of a hole. And some of those, again, great shots, I'll give it to them, but some that are easily stoppable and that we've talked about and worked on in practice, those carry high, shoot high, and those carry low, shoot lows, like, we've got to be able to make those stops.
Now, you're talking to a novice here, Coach, but how important is it for communication with that goalkeeper, with the back line, to be in constant contact with them?
I mean, communication is huge all over the field, not only there. I mean, it's nice for the goalie because she has a different perspective. She sees out and everybody else is in. So that is nice, and kind of that leadership back there she's the backbone of the team and needs to be. But I do think that communication all over the field needs to be on point, and I think that sometimes we've had it and other times we hadn't.
You've already made this analogy in the Lynchburg game. The team was down 13-5 to end the first half. How important is it for you to not have to dig yourself out of a hole? Like you said, with a young team, not being stuck in those situations.
And that's the hard part. I mean, it is in lacrosse, you can score a goal in 7 seconds. So it's not really undoable. I mean, it's not that crazy. When we went into halftime, we said it's down by 7. I mean, you could score that in the first 5 minutes of the game if you wanted to. But again, it's more mental than anything. And to be able to kind of come back one goal at a time and kind of knock them off like that, it just is mentally tough. And I think that having a young team, we just aren't quite there mentally as much as we think that we are.
Your next matchup's against McDaniel, but you have some time, like you said. What do you want to work on in that break?
I think just going into it feeling prepared. I mean, not only in our own game plan, but knowing what they're doing and kind of help our team be as mentally prepared as possible. I think having some time this week to heal up with some injuries is going to help a lot and be able to be on point that way. I think that we have all week to kind of build again as a team and really decide what team we want to be moving forward. I mean, after the last loss, we came out and showed on Wednesday with Bridgewater. I mean, that was huge. We'd never beaten Bridgewater before since I've been here, and the same thing with McDaniel. We've never beat them. So that's something that for me as a coach, that's necessary to do in this season, and I think that they need to buy into that this week.
You spoke about Molly Biggers a little bit, 6 goals in that game against Bridgewater. Is she looking like someone you can lean on offensively for goal-scoring opportunities?
She's always someone that we lean on. I mean, with our team being small, we lean on everybody, and I think that's the problem, is that we kind of see someone stepping up in one game and it's like, okay, well, they'll do that again. And so maybe if they do that, I don't necessarily have to give my 100%. And that's the frustrating part, is that being so small, we need everybody to step up. And if we did, that 13-5 would have maybe been 13-12. And I think that's the problem of we really do kind of need everyone every game, and it can't just be 1 or 2 people here or there.
Coach Haley Ware, thanks for chatting with us. Looking forward to this season.
Thanks a lot.
Back here on the Bobcast tennis preview with Coach Jeff Splitter. Coach, what are some of your thoughts on the team heading into this spring?
Oh, great. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me. Our team's very. We have a lot of aged veterans on our team, a lot of seniors, a lot of senior leadership. Looking forward to those guys getting out there, guys and girls with the women as well. So, looking forward to kind of seeing what the potential is and living up to that hype.
Men are currently 2-0. Women's team is 3-1. What did you see in those matches that were encouraging signs here heading to the spring?
Yeah, we had a lot of, on the men's side, guys come out hungry, ready to play in the fall. They've taken a lot of that same effort into practice this semester, and they've been hitting on their own, hitting in the gym, getting the reps up in the weight room. Looking forward to seeing similar results and hoping we can compete more in conference than we have in the past. And on the women's side, similar, we had a close loss to Bethany to end the season. Left a lot of bad taste in our mouths, and looking forward to using what we learned from that match and hoping it doesn't happen again in the future.
Looking on that women's team, some of the names that have stood out, senior Jenna Lipinski and junior Kate Paler. What have you liked what you've seen from them thus far?
The best thing with those two is they've been here for 3 years straight together.
Right. Yeah.
They've played together for about 2 years now, and they know everything there is to know about each other. And a lot of the women too, with Sammy Turner and Allison Paul, who's out with an injury, but a lot of those girls have spent 3 years together playing and growing and making each other better. So just looking forward to watching them play doubles together and seeing all the fun they have on the court and helping out the teammates too.
On the women's side, would you say that chemistry has been a big factor for this squad currently?
Absolutely, yeah. There's been a lot of new players coming in the past 2 years. We have a lot of sophomores, a lot of freshmen, our first-year players on our team. And seeing how Jenna, Allison, Kate, Sammy, how they kind of interpret and bring in the new players as if they've always been on the team has been fun to be a part of.
You've kind of answered this question a little bit, but who are you looking for leadership roles on the women's side?
Yeah, leadership roles. Our captain is junior Allison Paul, who does a phenomenal job communicating and speaking with the players, even through injury. She's always present, comes to practice as much as possible. And then a few of the ones stepping up, is we're getting leadership from everybody. So that's Kate, Jenna, Satia, who is also one of our upperclassmen. So even sophomores like Sophia Staggers coming in and, making their presence known in practice and, putting in the hard work and, showing the leadership through hard work and dedication.
For the men's side, it starts with, and help me out here, Shasta Braithwaite is one of the names that jumps out. What growth have you seen from him as a tennis player here at Frostburg?
Yeah, he's been the number one player my entire year here, my entire 3 years. So he's a grinder. He loves to go out there and just play, have fun. The growth from him I've seen is he's gone from that first-year player who just loves to hit to now having more of a game plan and putting points together and knowing exactly what he wants to do when he gets out there.
Leadership roles on the men's side as well.
Leadership, our senior captain is Abby Alojo, and we have a lot of seniors on the team. So whether that's Nate Farlow, Derek Thompson, Dave Kramer, got a lot of guys who are stepping up and just want to see the best out of this group of athletes. Every day at practice, high energy. They don't wait for me to say something; they go ahead and do it right away. And as a coach, you can definitely appreciate that.
Big picture question here. What are some of the goals you're looking for from these teams this season?
Yeah, I said it first day of practice when we got in was I'm looking for consistency, discipline, not in terms of punishing ourselves for missing practice or something, but the discipline I'm looking for is tennis is a game of points. You win points, you lose points. It's forgetting the last ones you we missed, moving on to the next one, and really staying focused in the moment, not getting caught up in blown calls or bad things that have happened, just looking forward to the positive things.
This weekend, you're scheduled to take on Muskingum, and as we're doing this Bobcast, it's currently snowing. So the weather has played a role, and that may happen. So I'll ask you this. What are you looking forward to if that match does happen in that matchup?
Yeah, looking forward to a home court advantage. You know, not many teams can say they definitely have played in the snow. So being in Frostburg, it's definitely something. You know, if the weather's nice out, if it's not snowing, we're going to get out there and do as much as we can outside. We do a phenomenal job in the gym here with what we have, and yeah, looking forward to a good start. Looking forward to seeing the men and the women both get out there, high energy, discipline, consistency, and just from point one to the last point, cheering on each other, being creating that team environment is something big that we're looking forward to this semester.
Coach Jeff Splitter, thank you for the time. Thanks for joining us and looking forward to this season.
Great. Thank you.
Back here on the Bobcast, Field Events with head coach Bill Vasco. Coach, 1-2 this past weekend. Just wanted to get your overall thoughts on your team's performance.
Well, obviously it was nice to pick up the first win of the season against Pitt Bradford. We played really well in that game. We did what we needed to do at the plate. We had good pitching from Caitlin and Taylor that game, and overall our defense was pretty good, so it was nice to get on the plus side there. The second day obviously didn't pan out like we had hoped. Played two pretty good teams in Emory and Henry and Susquehanna. Saw some good pitching. And then overall, our pitchers, again, did what we asked them to do. We didn't play as well defensively, and I felt like we just didn't have as good of a day at the plate. But obviously, playing a little bit better competition and seeing better pitching affects that. So, coming back after that, it's nice to get a win, but, there are still a lot of things that we need to work on and continue to get better as we head into the tournament this weekend.
This is more of a mindset question for a team, but how important is it to you to get that first win when you start a weekend tournament?
It's nice because it kind of, sets the tone for the rest of the weekend. Obviously, dealing with some weather down there, we weren't able to get our second game in on that first day against Virginia Wesleyan. And then coming back the next day, knowing that we're going to play a little bit of better competition, it was disappointing that we couldn't carry over the momentum that we had created on day one into day two. So it's nice to get that first win, but, you want to keep building upon that and have that carry over to the next day as well.
In the Pitt-Bradford matchup, in the win, Olivia Ford goes 3 for 4, and you had, like you said, you mentioned about it before, some solid pitching in the circle. Who else really stood out to you in that game?
Well, our pitching did really well, obviously, with Caitlin and Taylor. Olivia continues to set the table for us in the leadoff position and has done a great job of getting on base there as well. We had a lot of people step up in terms of, Carly Worth behind the plate did a good job of managing our pitching staff throughout the game. And then, Amber Keene has done a great job as a freshman stepping in at the plate and coming up with big hits, as well as Aaliyah Ramey came up with some big RBIs in that game as well. Taylor McCarty had a big home run that really kind of opened things up a little bit and gave us the lead, and kind of that's what really built the momentum and gave us a lot of confidence to finish out the game as well.
In the two losses, there was one long inning, a 3-spot against Emory and Henry in the 6th inning, and a 6-run inning for Susquehanna in the 3rd. I know it's an easier said than done, but how do you avoid these big innings?
I think the main thing that we really need to focus on is when, we've asked our pitchers, we don't have a staff that's going to strike out a lot of people. We asked them to limit the walks, and we did really well in that we only had 8 walks in 3 games over the weekend, which gave us an opportunity to limit the base runners. But there are too many times where we're making errors and putting people on base, and then the other team follows up with a big hit that brings the runs in. So, one, we need to limit free bases with errors or just in general mental mistakes that may allow base runners to get an extra base. And then if we do have a obviously mistakes are going to happen, but when they do, we need to then minimize the damage that happens afterwards by, coming back and working hard to get the next batter and not let that momentum carry for the other team and allow them to capitalize on our mistakes. So I think, limiting the mistakes and then when they do happen, minimizing the damage that occurs afterwards is going to be really important for us moving forward.
Being that this is still early in the season, did you see anything new this weekend as opposed to the last time out?
I felt like overall we were a little more comfortable. We had a tournament under our belt, so I felt like, we had a little bit better idea of what to expect. We weren't as nervous, and just, working together as a group, coaching staff and team, I felt we were a little bit better prepared in terms of our preparation prior to the games and just having a little bit better overall flow of what we were doing out there. I thought that was a big step for us, especially not having a lot of opportunity to work together. We didn't have any scrimmages in the fall, and we haven't had any opportunity to get out and do, full team scrimmage type of work prior to playing this year. So, just the flow and working together was obviously, we were more comfortable and had a better idea of, what we were going to do and what we needed to do to out on the field. So I thought, that was the big thing taking away after that first tournament.
Team's heading back to Virginia for the Beach Blast in Virginia Beach, where you'll play Allegheny, Randolph-Macon, Hunter, and North Carolina Wesleyan. What are you wanting to see from the team in these matchups?
Well, once again, this is going to be a really tough tournament. Looking at the four teams that we play historically, they're all winning programs. So it's going to be some tough competition for us. And obviously we're still young and inexperienced, and we haven't had a lot of opportunities to go out and practice outside or play as a team outside other than our previous tournament. So I just, I want to see the team go out and compete. And also, like we just talked about in terms of when bad things happen, being able to bounce back and then come right back and, build some momentum of our own and not, feel sorry for ourselves or anything like that. So, I think just go out and face good competition and step up and want to compete for all 7 innings is going to be key for us in each of those games this weekend.
Since it's so early in the season, still in the non-conference, is the biggest thing in your opinion just reps, just getting these players reps?
Yeah, we've talked about all along that we want to continue to get better in everything that we do in practice and in games so that by the time conference play starts that we're playing our best ball. So, I felt there were a lot of things that we did a lot better this past weekend, but that we need to continue to work on those things in practice. And it's tough. You get back and we have all this snow. We know we're going to be inside, and we've only got a limited amount of practice time this week before we head back on the road again. So, we've just got to figure out a way to continue to get better at the things that we didn't do well this past weekend and build upon that going into this weekend so that we can continue to see the improvement on the field.
Coach Bill Vasco, thanks for talking with us, and good luck this weekend.
All right, thank you.
Back here on the Bobcast, your weekly Frostburg State Athletics podcast-style show. I'm here with Coach Steve Gardelman. And Coach, first question for you. Looking at the previous week, your squad split going 1-1. What was the differences in the two matchups?
I think in the first one was kind of pregame or first game kind of jitters. We came out slow, didn't really look like ourselves, and figured it out, got our rhythm going, and really turned it on the second half for a strong win against a solid Liv Val squad. And then in the Washington College game, I think it was kind of the opposite, where we were too revved up in a big rivalry game and got ourselves tense and crazy, where, again, we didn't quite look at ourselves. Got better in the second half, but that was a quite strong Washington College team. So I just think both mindsets were a little opposite ends of the spectrum. We got to level those out and trying to find a consistent mindset to get into this week.
You talk about in the Liv Val game, starts a little less than ideal, like you said. Those pregame jitters down 4 goals to 1 at half. What was the message for the second half? Kind of just settle down and play your game?
Yeah, actually at the halftime we took a deep breath together. We 1-2-3 in, 1-2-3 out, and said, fellas, we know we can do better than this. Get back to our basics, some of this, some of that. And once we started getting the transition game going and playing a little bit more of the full field, connecting the defense to the offense, because the defense played great in that first half. So once we connected that, letting their efforts pay off in runouts and goals, it just opened up. So just a deep breath, and we settled into some good rhythm.
Maybe the same answer here, but you responded with 6 goals in that third period. Was it strictly tactical, or was it just the team playing with more purpose in this period?
I'd say it was a little bit of both. More purpose made the tactics work better. I'd say that would be the case, where we were asking for the same things in the first half. We got a little bit more juice out of them in the second. And as that happened, it started to show more benefits to what we were trying to run. and the early offense action created some mismatches where Jason and Paul were able to get some good matchups and start creating for us.
How important is it for you to have a certain amount of swagger on the road for your team?
Yeah, it's really important. We got to have that mindset of we're out there to, take one from them at home. It's everybody wants to make sure they defend their own turf, and there's always some added incentive to go on the road and kind of show them what we got as the visitor walking into an opponent's level. So there's definitely some aspect there, but realistically, we think of them all the same way. We want to find a consistent mindset. So hopefully we're not getting ourselves too revved up to go and steal one from an opponent at their place. And when we get people come here, we don't get too revved up to try to defend the turf. Just find that maintainable, the 4 quarters or whatever we can for 4 quarters plus sustain and play fast and aggressive. But we got ourselves a little crazy in the past couple of days, so we'll find it.
You mentioned this in the first question, but moving that matchup with Washington on Saturday, what was the difference going into that one besides the mindset necessarily? Was there something a little more tactical, or is it just one of those situations where it's just a bad matchup?
I think what was going on was, they were really, really connecting the dots. Everything that they were throwing, they were making some nice one-handed snags. They were reeling in a lot of tough plays.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of didn't connect those. The ones that were inches from getting connected would go to their stick, and they would capitalize the other way. So I think it was one of those days where the ball kind of bounces their way a little bit, and it kind of affected our mindset to be able to bounce back. But realistically, we looked at the film, and it didn't quite, again, look at the stuff we were trying to do.
Yeah.
It's still a scheme and stuff they're learning. I'm the new coach here trying to get the thing kind of revved up a little bit. So we're still learning together. So I think that's all part of it, of getting things to be instinctual, not thinking out there, being able to go play while running the new style.
Beauty of it is it's game 2. There's a lot more games to be played.
Absolutely.
A scoreless second period added to 7 goals by Washington really changed the complexion of the game. How do you limit these runs? I know it's easier said than done, but how do you try and make those stop?
Yeah, our clearing game, I don't think we cleared exceptionally well in the Washington College game. We didn't run our schematics quite how we should. And also one of the things that our coaching staff reevaluated was we can play deeper. We have a bunch of guys on the team that are playing well that we didn't quite run, for no fault of their own, just us slipping the mind. So we got to get more guys out there to make sure we have fresher legs doing the stuff we want to do with a little more purpose. So that's something we want to change, is run deeper. I think in that second quarter we got really gassed with our first line middies running over and over again. So that's something we're going to look to expand our numbers, and we trust a lot of guys on this roster, so we got to start showing it.
This is coming from a novice, but in that matchup it seemed like the face-off game was pretty much dominated by the Bobcats. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we did feel good going into that matchup, from our film evaluation that our guys were playing really well and that we'd have a good matchup. So we were hoping that would get us more opportunities there to end some of those runs. But it seemed like every time we got the ball, we weren't able to connect the dot, and then they would get the run the other way and put something in the net, and it snowballed fast. So the runs kept running.
Matthew Ward scored a couple of goals and played an overall pretty solid game. What did you like what you saw from him?
Just absolute grit. He's another guy, a first-year guy who he's in the first line with Jake and Jimmy, who we gassed him. That's something where I think we got to do a bit more to keep them fresh, trust other guys to do some stuff. But he played on both sides of the ball, which he hasn't done a lot of this year, and he did very well there. When you get him less tired, he'll play a little bit better on both sides of the ball, so I think he'll say even himself defensively he wants to improve a little bit. But just playing selfless lacrosse, he did the stuff that we asked of him, and it just turned out to put some points on the boards for him, but just put himself in the right spot at the right time because he was doing kind of what we asked of in the scout. So great young guy taking the knowledge from paper to the field and really applying the stuff we talk about.
Encouraging, especially from a young player. This week it's Eastern on Tuesday at Johns Hopkins and SUNY Oneonta on Saturday here in Frostburg. What do you want the mindset to be from the team this week? You get another 2 matchup week.
Yeah, fast start. It has to be a fast start. Guys are starting to say, get hot, stay hot.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that's our warm-up. We get hot in the warm-up, we stay hot from the first whistle. Because that's been our Achilles heel right now is the starts where we were able to come back against Lev Valley because it wasn't that big of a hole, but it can go fast where we saw in the Washington College game where the runs continue to go. So we have to start fast and maintain it. So finding that level of aggression or mindset that we have to find that can be withheld for 4 quarters, but something that comes us off the bus, out of the gate, out of the locker room, whatever it is, really fired up. So we've talked to the team, had some ideas going, and I think we're going to have a better start as we build this thing together. It's still, like you said, still a process.
Coach Steve Gardelman, looking forward to speaking with you more this season. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.